Excellent. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in and welcome to this AI growth rituals. So, the intention of our session is to daily to give you an idea as how you can progress yourself in this learning journey of MLOps and AI, guys. So, let's get started with today's topic. The agenda of today's session is to take you through this concept of data versioning and management. So we'll be looking into the data versioning in and management from the topic of MLOps. And we'll be looking into what are the common machine learning issues that are caused by poor data management. We'll understand what is data versioning and how data versioning solves these issues and the tools and the practices that we have for data versioning. So, I'll take you through the overall concept of data versioning and I'll give you a theoretical idea and also I'll give you a quick demonstration about one of the tools that we have got that's DVC. Okay. So let's get started, guys. See, when you think about any machine learning project, a machine learning project is basically made up of three essential things: our source code or the logic, which is basically our machine learning code or the training code that we have got, and the training data based on which we are building our trained machine learning model, and a configuration file which lists down the various configuration and the variable values that are used in our machine learning code. Now, by combining all these, here we are going to build or get a trained machine learning model. Now, that's a basic thing that you need to know. A machine learning model is made up of code, data, and the configuration. Now, in order to look into this code and configuration, we can make use of Git-based repositories, and we have looked at it at a very high level in the last session. We'll be looking at it in our other sessions as well, but you know a pretty basic idea about how we can track the source code and the configuration. Like I can make use of the Git-based repositories and track the same. Now, the key thing that we'll be focusing on in this today's session is the data. How can we track the data? Because if there is any changes in the data, then there will be a change in pattern in my machine learning model, which actually looks into uh, how the model is built or the patterns that we have got in this data set. So here, when we talk about the machine learning, the data is a backbone of machine learning models. And it is very important that we maintain consistency, reproducibility, as well as the accuracy so that we can track those changes in the data and manage those data changes in an effective manner. And here, that's where the data versioning tools will come into picture. Now, when I say versioning, these versioning will help us to ensure that we can track the data that we are working with. And if there are any issues, we can revert the changes as required. Okay, so that's the overall idea about the data versioning and management. Now, what happens or why should we have to worry about this data versioning and management? So, let's look into the common machine learning issues which might occur because of poor data management. See, one of the key things that would happen is inconsistent results due to uncontrolled data changes, which means if I do not have any control over the changes that would happen on the data set, then think of it in this way. I'll just take up a machine learning pipeline itself. So let's say during pre-processing, I'll do some set of activities. And once I've learned that pattern in the pre-processing step, maybe when I'm performing the prediction, the data structure might change. So if there are inconsistent changes that would happen in the pipeline itself, like during each step, that's going to result in inconsistent results. And the same thing that the pattern that we have used during the training and the pattern that we have used during the evaluation, it should more or less follow the same statistical data points that where the training data and the test data should be matching. Now, if there are changes that are happening, then this is going to result in inconsistent results. And another challenge that we would face as a data scientist, if I'm analyzing in such inconsistent data changes scenario, there will be a difficulty in reproducing the experiment. And this can also result in the data drift, which will lead to the model degradation. So these are the common issues that we would face if there is poor data management. Now, let's dive into understanding what exactly is this data versioning. So as I've described earlier, we can make use of the Git based files or Git based code for tracking the code data. Now, when it comes to the data itself, so here we can make use of a tools which is specific for versioning tools so that we can track the changes in the data sets over the period of time. And this data versioning also involves labeling and management of different versions of the data. And you can think of it as very much similar to the version control system that we have got for code. So just like for code, we have Git, in the same way for data versioning, we have the similar tools. Okay, we'll talk about it as we progress in the following slides. So now that you have understood what is data versioning and the importance of this data versioning, let's understand how this data versioning is helping us with the ML issues. See, one of the way in which this data versioning is helping us is reproducibility. So we'll be able to recreate the exact experiment condition on which we have got a specific metric from the evaluation, because we are now able to track the changes in the data set and we can roll back to that version so that we can reproduce the experiment. And the another benefit is consistency. So this will ensure the model training uses the right data set. And with the versioning in place, it also helps us in accountability, where we can track who has made a specific changes and why and what change that they have done. And as I mentioned already, we can revert to the known good state whenever any issues arise. Now, in order to implement this data versioning in machine learning and generative AI project, we have various tools in the market and we generally use it in our MLOps journey. To name a few, we have DVC, that is called as data version control. We have Git LFS. We generally use this Git LFS for large file. And we also have other tools such as PyKite, Quilt, LakeFS, and so on. So these are the common tools that we have for the purpose of data versioning. Now, I'll give you a quick demonstration as how does these data version control would work so that you'll get an idea as what exactly is it all about. So let's do one thing. Let's have a quick demonstration of working with this DVC. So here, in order to work with this DVC, so first thing that we need to do is we need to perform the installation. So let me just go ahead and show you the steps. So I'll also share the link over here in the chat window about the page in which you can utilize it for referring the installation instructions. So since I'm using the Mac OS, I'll make use of Brew to install the DVC. I'm going to launch my terminal. Okay. And here I'll say Brew install DVC. So this is going to install the DVC in my local system. Okay, so this will go ahead and take care of the installation for me. So if you want to install with pip, you can just make use of pip install DVC. That will also go ahead and install. And then we also have the installation options with Conda as well. Now, once the DVC has been installed, okay, now what we can do is in order to get started with this project, so we make use of a command that's called as init command, which is going to initialize a DVC project. Okay, let's wait for the installation to get completed. Now, while it is being installed, guys, so I want to know from you, from your experience, have you ever used the data versioning tools in your project? So let me know in the chat window if you have used in the past and which tool that you have used. Okay, Nikat says it's similar to Git. Okay, that's great, Nikat. How about others? Have you used any other tools for tracking the data at your projects? Okay, Dheeraj says haven't come across, but we are still trying to figure out. Okay, that's great, Dheeraj. Okay, Santosh says I've used DVC in my test project. Okay, that's good to know, Santosh. Okay, Lakshmi says I've tried DVC once. Okay, that's amazing, guys. Okay, so for the benefit of time, I'll just give you a quick idea about the codes that we can run. Okay, now I've just created a folder and I'm going to launch that folder in my VS Code. So this is an empty folder that I've just initialized. Now, in order to start working with DVC, we'll simply say DVC init. Okay, let's wait. I think in order to run this command, okay, it's almost done. That's great. Okay, now that this is installed, so let's go ahead and initialize the project. I'll say DVC init. So, all right. So, in order to get started, okay, in order to get started on tracking the particular folder with the help of DVC, one thing that we have to do is we have to be tracking the source code first, that particular repository with the help of the SCM tool. It can be Git. Like for example, what I'll do is first thing that I'll do is I'll say git init, and once I initialize this repository, that is this folder, then I can go ahead and initialize it with the help of DVC. See, this has initialized the folder with the help of DVC, and it has actually, along with generally when we initialize the git, we'll have some internal file, right? In the same way, this DVC will also have the internal file. One is called as config and the other one is for git ignore. Okay, so in this way we can go ahead and initialize the DVC repository. And once we start working, then here, if I want to work inside this initialized project directory, so what I'll do is I would go ahead and let me just add a simple text file. Okay, so I'll just say test.txt and welcome. Okay, this is a simple text file that I'm adding. Now, once I have added, in order to be able to start tracking this data set file, so the way that we do it is we'll say DVC add, and then we'll specify the file for which we want to start tracking the data set. So we can see a message, it says as adding, and to track the changes with Git, then I have to go ahead and run this command. Okay, that's what it says right here. So in this way, I can actually go ahead and perform the tracking. And then if I want to start tracking with Git, I can go ahead and perform the same by mentioning as git add. And then I can go ahead to track the changes in Git. And once it's done, I can just run the command, that is git commit and -m. I'll just say demo commit. Okay. So this has performed the commit. Now, what we have done right now is the metadata of our data set that we are currently tracking. So this has been versioned along with the source code that we have got. Okay, let me just show you this. This is very important for you to remember. If you take a look into this git ignore, since I'm tracking the data set with the help of DVC, I'm ignoring inside this git ignore. Okay, but the metadata related to this data set, that's actually part of this DVC. or sorry, that's actually part of our Git. So that's the best part over here. Okay, that's the best part over here when we are tracking the data set with the help of DVC. Now, whenever we are thinking about pushing the data, we have to add a remote directory. So generally, when we are working with, let's say, a cloud, so we'll be able to add the cloud. For example, I can say DVC remote and add that particular location, maybe my S3 bucket location, where I can specify my remote location and I can upload the data with the help of DV push. So that's the core idea of tracking the changes in the data set with the help of DVC. Okay, so this was about a quick introduction to importance of data versioning and how to get started with the help of DVC. So with this, we come to the end of today's session, guys. And if you're someone who is new to MLOps and not sure as how to get started, I highly recommend you to check out the upcoming webinar that we have got. So do check out this link that I have mentioned in the description to get the details about the upcoming webinar. So take care, guys, and join our WhatsApp community to get the links on the next webinar. So take care. I'll see you next time.